Hello, my name is Brian Strathdy and I'm the Chief Instructor at Urban Combat. And I'd first like to thank you for taking your time to check out our instructional DVD. We hope that you'll find material that is both useful and very practical that you can put right away into your daily training. The DVD is broken into two sections. The first section is how to attack with a knife like a felon might. The reason we do this is because the better you are at attacking with the knife, the better your partner must become to defend against it. Think of it this way. Any technique that you have could probably work against a 10-year-old, right? I'm sure it could. However, now do that same technique against a criminal who's been in prison for 10 years and who has been in lots of knife fights. Chances are it won't work. And why? Because the commitment and the level of experience is different. So what we really want you to gain from the first part of the DVD is what a real knife fight looks like. And again, we want you to train aggressively to make your partner better. Now in the second part of the DVD, what we're going to talk about is basic defenses while standing, while clinched, and on the ground. So if you're ready, let's get to work. What I'd like to talk about now is the smoking blade. The smoking blade is a technique that was devised between World War I and World War II, and it's a training method to take a general infantry soldier and very quickly teach him all the major kill spots of the body. Now, if you purchased one of our knives, which I hope you have, you'll get a nice little 8.5 by 11 printout, which will have all of these areas designated, and it will also say, like if you hit the subclavian, it'll tell you how long it takes for this person to become unconscious and then how long it will lead to death. But I want to make one point real clear. I don't show this material for the thugs and the gangsters out there. I want this to be a good training methodology for you so you can understand what areas of the body you must protect in a knife fight. Now the smoking blade can be done one of two ways. You can do it in a forward grip, or you can do it in a reverse grip. Now everyone likes the reverse grip because it looks more aggressive and demonstrative. So that's the way we're going to show it, but realize you can do it either way that you like, all right? Now as I go through, I want to make one point clear again. Almost all of the major kill spots are within the center mass of your target, okay? The subclavian arteries are about 2.5 inches down. The carotid arteries are about 1.5 inches deep. The brachial and the radial are about 1/2 inch below the surface. The heart is about 3.5. The stomach is about 5. The femoral, about 2 inches. Again, this is all variable, and it depends on how big and muscular your partner is. So we're going to walk through it slow. It starts off as you bring the blade up from your reverse grip, slide right across the subclavian, and then you plunge cut down. You're going to pull out and you're going to touch the carotid. You pull across the carotid, across the windpipe, and again across the carotid. You're going to pull back, slide across the subclavian, and stab down. Pull out, carotid, windpipe, step through carotid. Come around, stabbing into the kidney, coming out, dragging underneath the arm. We're going for the abdominal aorta, the stomach, and the intestines to disembowel. Pull up, down into the heart, drop to one knee, stab up into the perineal, pull out, strike into the windpipe, pull out. We're going to go now for the brachial artery, then hit to the lung, then step behind as if more was necessary, cut through to the femoral artery. Now again, you can do this from forward and reverse. I'll show it now with the forward grip. Same positions, subclavians, carotid, windpipe, carotid, subclavians, carotid, windpipe, carotid, come to the kidney, come around the abdominal aorta, come into the heart, drop down, perineal, come up, windpipe, brachial, lung, femoral. Now, again, when you do this, this is the only static pattern we really do in our style, because everything has to be resistance-based. But again, this is just a simple training technique that you can just kind of practice. Okay, and granted, you're not going to go for all of these targets. The reason they call it the smoking blade is that, let's say it was a nighttime assassination. I would have my cigarette and I'd be dressed like another target. I would take a big drag on my cigarette, walk up, blow it, and I would go in for one of those shots. Okay? So by no means are you trying to hit all these. That would be ridiculous, that would be overkill. But what I want you to take away is that the subclavians, the carotid, the abdominals, the lungs, the femoral, all reside within center mass. Talk about now real quickly is a few basic strikes. And again, don't get hung up on any fancy pattern. Simply take the strikes, learn them as individual tools like a hammer, a screwdriver, and a saw, and know when you can best apply them. The first one is just a basic X pattern. Okay? It's a slash, but we're just putting two slashes together. And you can cut both on the down or on the upstroke. It's up to you. Okay? So if I'm standing in front of Joe here, Joe puts his hands up, I might slash across, maybe going for both carotid arteries, and then I might drop down and let's say go for a stab to the perineal or the femoral. Okay? Because you want to have the concept of always striking high and low, and then striking low and high. Okay? Because it draws his hands up or draws his hands down. So again, the basic X just draws across your partner. And it can be high and it can be low. It's whatever you like. The next basic is an overhand stab. Just as if I was to punch Joe with an overhand strike where my elbow points to the ceiling, it comes over his hands and hits right to the knockout triangle, main point here on the jaw. The same with the knife. Because if Joe puts his left hand up, when it goes out to defend, the nice thing about having this hollowed out is it comes around and down. So it really moves around his intercepting technique, which is the shield that he's trying to put out. Okay? So the overhand again, elbow points up, and it cuts down. So again, you could work an X to draw the hands, you could go down low, and you could feed up high. Again, it's up to you, whatever flow works for you. Now the last one is just a basic stab. But what I want you to do though, is just doing this is fine, but it's always better to have contact with your partner. So you literally want to grab and stab, okay? And it's also a key defining element of an aggressive attack is pushing into your partner. Because just standing out here, well, that's not going to do very much. Because every move I make, he's going to move back or respond. So I want to make sure off of my strikes that I cover the distance and move into my partner. Okay? So it could be an X high, it could be a stab to the femoral low, it could be an overhand high, it could be an X to the face. Again, whatever openings your partner gives you. So the first drill that we're going to practice is really to help with your perfect intent and your tenacity. So one of the most common things a person would do, and with training or no training, when they see that blade coming at you, they're going to try to grab that hand. And that's something they really should do. All right? So the way this drill is going to work is I go into stab, he's going to grab. I'm going to take my free checking hand, this is my free hand, and I'm going to strike to the face or to the neck. All right? Now, just because we don't have headgear on right now, we're going to work to the neck or just to the body. But realize, in reality, you would go right to the face or right into the neck. Okay? So the drill is going to look a little bit like this. And as soon as my hand comes out, I feel contact, I'm going to push back, and I'm going to go right back for one of those areas of the smoking blade. Because now that you know it, we should aim for them now. Really try to get them. the first drill that we just did, and again, we build these drills out in an evolution. Someone with common sense would immediately try to seize your hand, and you want to pull that hand right back and keep that blade in action, all right? Now, the next drill that we're going to talk about is, it's not more advanced, it's just to give you another option. When that knife comes in and they do seize it, I want you to do something called a counter cut as you pull out, meaning I'm going to try to cut the tendons of his wrist. So as I pull the blade out, I'm going to try to drag it, throw my checking hand out, and continue my strike. Because there might be a moment where this knife comes in, and as you go to pull out, it doesn't pull out, all right? When it does finally start to go, you want to make sure you take those tendons with you. So if that knife does come in again, well, this hand's going to be useless, right? Because you cut the tendons, either here and cut back, or roll it over and cut back, roll it out and cut back, roll it over and cut back. So the next most common thing that's going to happen, aside from as you come in that they instinctively try to grab hold, will be some kind of clinch. Because as the knife comes in, he might grab it, or he might go for my body entirely, which is a smart thing on his part. So now from here, granted, see how his wrist is open? That might be a good time for a counter cut and then a stab. But we want to make sure we stay in the clinch for this drill. We don't want to break away because we want to really, I'm sorry, it's hard for me to look up because he's holding my head. But the main thing here is that we want to stay clinched and tight. You want to learn how to switch the blade and work it into his body. Come on, Ronnie. Nice. Okay, time. That was nice. That was nice. And what I want you guys to get the idea of, it is almost impossible to control that blade.
In our first case study, we see a husband and wife walking through a parking lot when the husband then grabs his wife and starts stabbing her. What we learned from this unfortunate event is two key points. One, that the knife is an ambush-style weapon and is almost never seen before it's put into play. The other key point is that the attacker almost always keeps the knife in the rear hand and controls with the lead hand. This makes it exceptionally difficult for you to ever gain control and access to the weapon itself. So if your current technique requires you to control the weapon hand, you might want to reconsider that as a tactical option.
The next thing we want to talk about is a basic entry tactic. Now, this is really, we'll show you some of the most common ways that someone who's trained with the knife will come in aggressively against you. So the first one, and it's really the tactic we use all the time in the studio, is the jab, grab, and stab. So Ronnie, come a little closer. We start with a jab, right? To the face, break the nose, grab the hair. But the main thing is, startle them right away. The nice thing about a strike to the face is it will elicit the startle flinch response. So as this punch comes up, his hands are going to rise, right? So after this shot, I grab a hold really any way you like, but we'll show you 3 solid ways to hold. After this initial strike, the first really good way to grab is to hook the neck, because you can pull them off balance as you start working your strikes. Another good control hold is to drop and reach behind the arm. Okay? We're going to work an underhook, to an arm drag, and I pull, boom. I might go in for the kidney, abdominal aorta, femoral, perineal, but I'm working for those major spots. So, good basic hookups are neck, shoot through to the arm, or you can drop and do a high single and work stabs to the perineal or the femoral artery. Now, the way we're going to start drilling this, you're going to walk up, Joe's going to strike Ronnie. He's going to go for even a body lock if he likes. Kind of depends where the hands are. But then he's going to work in with some strikes. So we'll bring Joe in right now, and you two can begin. So the next drill is very similar to the first, but we're not going to break contact. We're just going to remain in our clinch, and we're going to go for those basic hookups. We'll work head steers, high single leg lifts, arm drags, whatever you'd like. Okay? So we'll bring Joe in just a second. I'm just going to go for just a moment. Okay? Working here. What Joe's going to try to do is keep the blade away from the center mass. Again, the idea is to train me how to cover that distance and really get in. Okay? Now Joe is going to try to stay within the red bags. Again, in your studio, use the entire studio. And also, Joe, fall down once or twice, just to make sure Ronnie's training his perfect intent to follow you to the ground. Now, the one caveat here is our normal defense, which we'll show in just a minute, is to strike to the head. We're not going to allow him to do that right now. Good, Ronnie, get him. Now, the first knife defensive drill that we're going to cover is the basic avoidance drill. Now, what you will probably remember from the smoking blade is that all the major kill areas are in the center mass, right? And I need to protect those. The most simple way to do that is by keeping my arms in. So what we will always be working on is not palms out, because that will get my tendons cut. I just turn my palms in and I glue them to my body. This is not how you would fight. You would not stay in a confined area if you didn't have to. We just want to drill home the point, is that you're keeping your hands in, tight, and you are running for the exit. So now let's look at the drill in action. You only need two things. You need a marking blade, preferably one of our Urban Combat marking blades, and you need a t-shirt, just a nice light colored white t-shirt. Just make sure this thing's going to get ruined. You can clean them afterwards with something like spray and wash, but just realize, don't wear anything real nice. Now, what Joe is going to try to do, he's going to try to go from red bag to red bag. Those will simulate his escape routes. And again, we're doing this in a small space, which might represent a hallway. All right, maybe your bed is here and you just have this little walkway between you and the dresser, you and the wall, but it's relatively realistic. But now the restrictions I'm going to put on Joe is no kicking and no punching. The main concept is if something comes to the neck, he's just going to cover that with his hand. Okay, you guys ready? Begin. Well, now let's look at the results that we got. Now, the main thing you're probably noticing is that Joe's center mass is virtually untouched. And really isn't that the point? That was the point of the drill, that you're to keep your hands in and protect the abdominal aorta, the heart, the windpipe, all of that. And it's all virtually untouched. But now if Joe turns just a little bit to the side and puts his hands up like he was, well, yeah, his bicep is probably completely shaved to the bone. But again, we put Joe in a bad spot. He couldn't kick, he couldn't punch, and he was in a very tight confine, all right? But looking at worst case scenario, this is acceptable. He could go have his biceps stitched up. So like I've stated before, all of our drills are a gradual evolution. And now we completely understand that most knife fights don't start from long range. I mean, they'll start from very close with an immediate grab or just an all-out blitzkrieg with the knife. But that's not always the case. As the two clips I showed you in the case study section, both of those people had about arm's reach from their opponent. So again, we're trying to give you the highest percentage techniques that work from there. So what we first talked about in the last drill was cover center line. Now we add on to that. Joe is going to cover his center line, but he is also going to throw out kicks at the center mass to kind of knock the person back. And he's also going to grab anything that he physically can to put between the target and himself. All right? So it could be a mat, it could be keys, a piece of paper, it could be spit. Anything you can put between. Now, I want to just digress for one moment and tell a funny story. We play a game at the studio called Hitman, and the way it works is anybody at any time can be attacked. Well, one day I wanted to attack Ronnie, so I was hiding behind the water cooler, and I saw him coming, and just as he came around the corner to enter the studio, I jumped out with the knife and tried to scare him. Well, what he did, you see these keys here? All right, this is a serious stack of keys. He instinctively, just released him, startle flinch, hands flew up, shot the keys out. The keys poked me in the freaking eye, and I just kind of dropped down to the ground as he took off across the parking lot. He was gone. Well, isn't that the perfect defense, right? Imagine it's the same thing. I'm walking to my car. Someone comes out from behind my car. Oh, I see a flicker of a blade. Boom, throw the keys. Startle flinch response. Anything that goes towards the human face, they're going to bring their hands up between themselves and the threat to stop that threat. If they don't, they'll get poked in the eye. And that's why when we play Hitman, we always wear headgear. All right? So now here's how this drill is going to work. Joe again is going to cover center mass, and he's going to move from red bag to red bag. Again, we're making this worst case scenario. We're keeping this very small confines. There's things along the ground he's going to try to pick up and throw at Ronnie. And when he picks them up, he's going to throw it directly at the face, and then throw a heavy kick underneath that. So he's temporarily distracting, throwing the kick, and then still working his escape. Strikes, we're going to start covering strikes right after this drill. Okay, you guys ready? Let's go. Good, Joe, good. Protect center line, really stab in.
In our second case study, we see a fight between a group of men, and the one in the white shirt has a knife in his left hand. The other man blocks and then punches him in the stomach, causing him to drop the knife. As they fall back into frame, you're going to see a man come up on the left who picks the knife up off the ground, stabbing the man in the white under the arm. He goes into shock and falls down. This brings an interesting point to mind, and it's that if the knife is shown before it's used, it's more of an intimidation weapon than an assassination weapon. Good shield and strike, the knife drops. They come back into frame. The man on the left grabs the blade, stabs, and they all take off.
So now what I can't stress enough again, it's avoidance and escape. That's the most important thing about a knife confrontation. You want nothing to do with the blade. But sometimes the attack is already right on top of you. So we do a shield and then a strike to the face when we're already in range, and let's say I can't throw that kick. With the shield, we don't want to overcomplicate this. We don't want to try to parry it too much. We just want to put anything that we can in between the blade and its progress to my body, anything. We just call it a shield because it's just a generic term just to get it between the two of us, okay? So my arm would be the shield, all right? Secondly, right off of my shield, I am going to drive, boom, with 1, 2, 3, as many shots as I need to the head. As soon as he starts to fall back, I run the other way, all right? So here's how we like to work the drill. Person will stand there with their eyes closed. The partner will call my name. When they call my name, they'll come in with multiple attacks, and it's my job, as soon as he says my name, we'll go slow,
Brian.
to just block it and then do the 100-yard dash right through his head, okay? As soon as he starts to fall back, I take off and leave, all right? This is not about decimating your opponent. This is about blasting in aggressively and explosively to make my exit, all right? Let's start the drill.
Brian. 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 Brian.
Now we can break this drill down just a little bit more, because sometimes you're standing there with your eyes closed, you know, you're really kind of nervous, but you don't have to worry about the block coming out, because again, because the startle flinch response, the body will naturally turn itself to the threat, the hands will come up, and they will go between the imposing danger, which would be the weapon in this case, and yourself. So it comes almost instinctively. But here's how you can train it slow if you want to break it down a little bit more. Just stand in front of your partner and have them strike at random targets. Shield it and strike. The worst thing you can do here, sorry Ronnie, is think. You don't need to think. Millennia of instincts have been ingrained through the reptilian complex that this will just instantly come out. It's about as simple of a defense as you can have. Now there's one thing I want to note about this particular drill. Now it might look in instances that Ronnie's really not trying to stab us, but I assure you he is. What happens though is when you get hit hard in the head, it resets the OTA process. The OTA process stands for observe, orient, decide, and act. And every time, boom, you get hit in the head, the whole thing restarts. So Ronnie might be coming at Joe or I with perfect intent. He really wants to shank us with that. But if on the second beat we smack him in the head, as he tries to recover and reset and really refocus his attack, we've hit him again and again and again. So it almost puts your partner into a temporary state of paralysis.
In our third case study, we see a group of people running into their apartment building to get away from a man with a knife. They run up the staircase, but shortly after, they're followed by the man with the knife. Realistically, they should have gone into their apartment, locked the door, and never come out, but they intend to come down and confront him. This becomes an ego-based fight. Lots of good punches here, but he gets stabbed 2 times under the arm. Notice one of the main characteristics that we've mentioned before is that they keep the knife in the rear hand and as far away from the intended victim as possible. A simple technique here might have been to have grabbed the railing and just kicked the man down the stairs. This would allow you to keep your center line back and away from danger.
Now for this next drill, we're going to talk about where you are in a space where you can escape. All right, but again, the principle is still the same. I'm going to shield myself from the blade, and really the simplest ways to do that, especially in this particular, this is about the size of an elevator, it's about 6 by 5 feet, would just be a heavy kick. Because if I were to dive and try to catch the blade, and if I miss that blade, I can get impaled right in the stomach, the abdominal aorta, the heart. These are all areas that we talked about that we must absolutely protect. So, I want to stay as far away as possible. I want to throw out heavy kicks. And what you're going to realize is when you hit, right now I'll hit the chest protector, in reality you want to hit just a little bit lower, right into the pelvic girdle to knock him back. When his hips flare back, it almost always exposes the knife. When that knife then is a little distended and away from the body, that's my chance to just shield it and then drive in repeatedly to the head. Now you might see there for a moment that after my initial block that I actually allow the knife to go as I drive to the head. I'm doing that because I intend to run 100 miles an hour down his center line. However, if I did this, but if I went for another shot, I felt that knife was coming back, boom, I would get that hand right back to be the barrier between us. So the idea is you move around your space, you're working a lot of kicks, and then when you feel that that arm is distended and back away from the body, then you can go for your block and strike. All right? Ronnie and I will go for just a minute, and then we'll bring in some other people. You can see how different body types work together. Okay? You ready, Ronnie? Good. Now Ronnie's really trying to stab me, but I'm also really trying to hit him. And when he feels these heavy hits, remember, it's that flash knockout. It's that momentary as the OTA process resets. You ready for someone else?
Yes.
Let's do it. Push him back. Nice. Fight from there, fight from there. Protect center line. Get her, Ronnie, get her, Ronnie. Stab her, Ronnie. So what you see, we went from someone who's kind of tall, a little lighter, brought in someone bigger like Doug, finished with someone a little smaller and lighter like Rachel. But what you'll notice is every time you make full contact to this person, they stop for a minute because their body has to reassess what just happened. And as soon as that reassessment takes place, full contact strikes to the head. Strikes to the body, they will absorb those and they'll be able to recover faster. Where if I keep 99% of my shots to his face, OTA process, flash knockouts. These things will constantly slow them down. And that's exactly what we need in tight quarters. If I just dive for this knife when he is unstunned in any way, it is going to be a real battle of muscle. As soon as I reach for that, he's going to rip it back, and he's going to be coming at me full force, full speed. Where if I can distend his body a little bit, take him out of his good stance, and I will find my opportunity to shield and then strike, this is going to make your knife defense much easier. One little test I like to do is take things to the absolute extreme, because we're now going to kind of start talking about clinch defense. A lot of styles will say that when that blade comes in, that you want to try to clinch and control it, okay? That does make sense in some ways. But remember what we talked about. What do most people do? They keep that weapon back. So that means I have to get past this checking hand to get to it. And what if he stops me in my progress? I'm not going to make it. And the time I spend trying to get to this, I'm going to constantly be taking shots from that rear hand, all right? So let's do this drill. Go just for, a few seconds, 2 knives against 1. Now, if I tried to clinch up with Doug, for example, and I tried when I got my good clinch, and I was trying to work my strikes and elbows and eye rakes and all that, what about Ronnie? Won't Ronnie just circle around and start stabbing? Well, of course he would. This is why, we take things to extremes. If what I am trying to show, what I would prefer to do is throw my kicks and hand strikes, if that will allow me to survive longer in this pit of death against these guys than trying to overhook, then wouldn't I stand a better chance of surviving doing this kick and strike when it's just one-on-one? Okay? Now, a bad statistic is most attacks on men are multiple opponents. 70% of all fights involve weapons, and you always have to assume a weapon is going to be present. All right? So they're just going to try to stab me, and just realize my main thing that I'm going to be working on is trying to survive. It'll be try to circle around and keep them somewhat stacked on top. There's not a lot of room. I'll try to push back the best I can. But again, I'm going to try to work all my shots to the face, fake eye rakes, maybe some elbows, and if I can temporarily control a weapon, I'll do it. Okay? But we'll just see how it goes. All right? This is an alive drill, and it's going to be a lot of work. So, you might say, oh, wow, he got stabbed a lot. Well, now let's look at the opposite side of that. I'm going to try to clinch with him. I'm going to try to either get to the back of his arm and control or overhook. Once I get this overhook, I'm going to work knees and elbows. Well, we'll just see what happens. Again, the difference, the first time, I'm doing everything I can to try to stack and keep space. And then when I saw the opportunity, headshots. The opposite now. I'm going to try to clinch. Well, let's just see what happens. It's payback for you two, huh? Let's go. Okay. Well, one mental mindset you always want to have, you don't stop till you're dead. I think only for the sake of time, I probably died, right? Yeah. They enveloped me, and right off the bat, I felt heavy punches to the body. Those are good enough to wear you out and make you bleed out. So here's a little experiment we should try. What we're going to do is we're going to have Doug try to stab Rachel repeatedly. Doug, about how much do you weigh?
185.
About 185. And Rachel?
120.
120. Okay, so there's a good size discrepancy here. But what I want you to see is if you take the methodology that you can control this arm, all right, maybe overhook it, control the wrist, whatever, but clinch fight from here and trying to control this limb, that might work with Doug and I who are equal size. And if we're equal skill, I might have a chance. Now Rachel, again, she's very skilled, but Doug has size and strength. So what I want to kind of see in this short drill is that Doug is going to try to repeatedly stab Rachel with this blade, but she's going to try to do everything she can to hold on to it. Let's just see what happens. Go, Rachel. Get it, get it, get it. Keep stabbing, Doug. Keep stabbing. Okay, good. Let's reset. Let's do it again. Just go. Try to strike him if you can, Rachel. Really pump that in there. Go, go, go. Stab, stab, stab. Use your checking hand. Use your checking hand, Doug. Check back. Okay, good. Okay, so what do we see there? Rachel is a very good martial artist. There's no question about that. But it's a fallacy to think that size and strength does not play a role in athletic activities. In fighting, that's an athletic activity, right? I would not want to try to hold on to this live wire of Doug's while he's striking and constantly pulling back. And the other thing you probably saw, when she did gain control, what did he do 9 times out of 10? He tried to swing her around and then he took the back. And that's an even worse position that you could be in. So again, size and strength plays a big role. And the technique part needs to take that into consideration. I don't want to teach my students something that will work for our size, but then not for her size. Okay, so my main objective in training people is to have simple techniques that work under adrenaline stress and work for all different body types. We have a core concept for the clinch. You heard me mention it before, but it's simply we do not want to clinch with the blade. We want to make as much space as quickly and as efficiently as possible. So here's the drill that we like to work on, which really helps us put our standing long-range defense, which was a kick or possibly a block and a strike, but we can make that same defense work within the clinch range, because again, we want to have as few tactical responses to any given situation. That way, I could spend 5 years working this basic technique and really master it, versus spending 5 years learning 5,000 techniques and never mastering one. There's the expression, is that don't fear the man who has 10,000 kicks, fear the man that's done one kick 10,000 times. All right? So here's how the drill is going to go. I'm going to stand with my eyes closed, and Austin is just going to hook up with me. All right? Because again, we have seen in most fights that the clinch starts either with a grab and immediate stabs, or they hug up, they're fighting, then the person pulls that blade and goes in for their attack. So here's how we're going to work the drill. Again, I'd stand with my eyes closed. Austin's going to grab any way he likes. Go ahead, Austin. And then he's going to just start pumping that knife into me. What I want to do, I want to try to turn into him and then just work the head and break contact and get away. Now, if we were to do this drill where I was to try to turn into him, overhook, and try to control that limb, you know what's going to happen. You've seen it already before in our tape. You have seen that when you go to overhook, one, that takes time. And the time that it takes you to overhook it, he's probably stabbed me 4 or 5 times. Remember the OTA process? We want to reset his mental processes almost instantaneously. So what you want to try to do when in the clinch, break contact and get away. So let's work the drill for just a minute. I think you get the idea, right? It's quick. It's all about explosive motion, breaking contact. Well, I like to push things to the extreme. Now, I'm going to try to clinch with him. I'm going to try to control the blade, and we'll just see right now how that goes. So hopefully we saw a good comparison there, right? I personally, I don't want to look back on that footage because I'm sure it didn't look pretty. I tried to clinch, and as I tried to overhook that arm, I was just eating shots. I tried an eye rake, some elbows, but it's really hard when that person's really driving pressure. After about 5 seconds, I thought, oh, forget it. I'm going to take them down. This is just, for me, that's just going to have to be my bailout technique. Because I had already, all up along the side of the body, all up along the center, I had felt a lot of heavy hits. You could very easily mark up one of our blades, put on a t-shirt, and you'll see for yourself that clinching with the blade is very dangerous.
In our fourth case study, we see an instance where a man is mounted his ex-wife and he's repeatedly stabbing her in the neck. Now there's two things you have to do when mounted. The first thing is you must control the blade, and the second is you must work to escape to a better position. You cannot just lie here. But I think the most disturbing thing about this clip is that all the people that are around are being so inefficient at actually helping her. Thankfully, she survived.
So the first thing I really want to drill home is you do not grapple with a knife. You don't clinch with a knife, you don't stand up with a knife. You always do everything you can to escape. So if you've got Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu experience, judo, wrestling, whatever, please realize that when you hit the ground, one, always expect they're going to pull a blade. Remember, 70% of all fights include weapons. And also, please remember that you need to get to your feet and escape as soon as possible. It's the same thing we do in our stand-up, same thing we do in clinch, same thing we want to do on the ground. So the first drill is simply controlling the blade, because our core concept when on the ground is control the blade, make them face your feet, and then you get up and take off. So the first drill, I'll just show it slowly, and then we'll bring Rachel out. He's going to mount. You want to get two hands and cup that wrist and get a good death grip. You cannot allow this hand to get away from you now. All right? You just do the best you can to control it. Sometimes what happens though is the knife is kind of flying around. It's hard to find that hand. Okay, it's a problem. Reach one hand up, hit the delivery system, which will be the shoulder to the bicep, and then go for it. Just to repeat that, the hand is flying around, hit the delivery system, and then grab the knife. The other thing you want to be very cautious of is anybody who is competitive is going to immediately try to switch hands. He's going to try to pass it over. When they do that, I have to split the difference and grab both. So we're going to do it slow. As he goes to switch hands, I split the difference and I grab both hands. I then can release this one and get my two-hand grip. He goes to switch hands again, I split the difference and I grab both hands. I know what he's trying to do, and then I go my two hands on one. Okay, good. One thing you're going to see a lot of, and what you guys are doing very well, thank you. I really don't want you to mount Joe, but we'll hand him a knife, is that you might see, because these guys have been doing this for a long time, that they're spending some time controlling the biceps. That's perfectly acceptable too. I mean, that is a good option. And they're doing that because it's calculated risk. They kind of know what they're doing. They know that if they spend too much time right here, he's always going to do that. And you get tired of that game, so you end up splitting. So there's two good techniques here. One is immediately get your two-hand control. The other technique is, again, like you mentioned, the delivery system. Because if I can keep both of these hands segregated, I will stand a good chance of keeping that blade from switching hands. Cool. So you've learned the main rule, which is control the blade. You were mounted for that entire drill, so now let's learn how to escape from the mount. Now again, realize we're going to show you the series of techniques. Know that you would want to spar these as much as possible. Once you get the basic technique and you do it a few times slow, you need to spar it, spar it, spar it. We always go for anywhere from 2 to 5 minute rounds in class, and you just work it continuously. If I escape the mount, then I get up, take off, and I come right back to the mount and I do it again. I escape, I take off, and I come back and I do it again. Because you always want to drill that getting up and taking off. All right, there has to be a visceral response in your body. So let's talk about how you escape the mount. First thing is, again, we get that two-hand control. And I really stretch his arm out. I'm trying to off-balance him. I am then going to take my left foot, and we'll show you from another angle in a second. I'm going to take my left foot and trap his right foot. I then bridge up sharply. And as soon as he starts to rock forward, I bridge hard, and I roll him over. I now work dropping elbows into the face. I can work eye rakes, punches to the groin, whatever I like. I am then going to pass his guard and come to his bicep. Once I get there, I could do more strikes, or I can do what we call the stab disarm, where I hold it tight on the wrist, smash the blade to the ground, pops the blade through, cutting the tendons. I take the blade and I take off. Okay? Let's look at that from another angle. Again, I establish my grip and I stretch it. I trap the foot and I bridge up hard and I roll. Okay, we'll just slide back a little bit. Pin it to the ground. Dropping elbows, eye rakes, punches to the groin, whatever you want to do at this point. I want to now go over his guard and pin the leg. Pin his arm with my leg. Lift up, stab, disarm, take it, and leave. We'll do it more real time. Okay, I get my control. Thank you. One more time, another angle. Remember, when you bridge up hard, you go for your roll as soon as he teeters up over you. Okay? There's a few basic movements or fundamentals that will really help you as you are trying to gain position and escape. The first one is called the bridge, and the second is called shrimping. First, start with the bridge. If Joe lays flat on his back, what he wants to do is he's going to bring both feet as close to his butt as possible. He's then going to lift his hips up off the ground. Okay? What this does is, if his partner is on top, okay, as he lifts up and then drops, he creates a space. And in that space, he can begin to escape. All right? So Joe, if you slide back, let's say I'm mounted, right? He brings his feet up high, bridges up with his hips, knocking me forward. And as soon as he brings his hips down, he's now created space between us to escape. What we'll talk about in just a moment, though, is actually how to escape from this position. But just realize a basic motion is called the bridge. All right? So Joe will do just a few bridges. He brings his feet in and lifts up and drops back down. Again, he brings his feet in, lifts up, and pops back down. If you want a simple way to drill this, just sit on your partner and he just bridges. Do it for like 2 minutes. Okay? And once he gets comfortable with it, he can now do a bridge and a roll, taking me off to the side. Okay? So he's going to bridge up. He's going to control one arm. And then he's going to roll over to his side. Okay, that's a simple bridge and roll. And you could, again, work that for 2 minutes. Now, another good fundamental is shrimping. Shrimping is very important. Joe, if you're on your back. If the person comes down cross-eyed, knee on belly, any number of positions, the purpose of the shrimp is to help you gain space between their body and yours. Okay? It's a great way to start the escape process. Okay? So if I start down on Joe, okay, whatever kind of position I'm going for, what Joe wants to do is bring his feet in close to his butt, just like with the bridge. Now what he's going to do, imagine someone grabs his hips and pulls them out. Okay, so he goes. Now he's created that space between us. He's now going to take his bottom knee and bring it between. Okay, now he's returned to guard. But that's just a basic shrimp. Joe, if you could do a few shrimps just from one side to the other. So he brings his feet up high, rotates on his shoulder, and then he resets for the sake of the drill. Toes down, hips back, and resets. Toes down, hip up. And notice his hips don't touch the ground when he does this. He has 2 points of contact. He has both feet and the opposite shoulder. Perfect. Okay? And again, usually when we're working out in class, we'll do like 2 or 3 lengths across the room. So that's the basic bridge. We also then added a roll and the basic shrimp. 2 fundamentals that you absolutely need to have for your ground escapes. Okay, so let's talk about another very common position, and this is the guard. And honestly, the guard technique that we do will apply probably to about 70% of all your ground altercations with the knife. Our main thought is this: get 2-hand control on the blade. I want to make him face my feet. So I put my feet on the hips and I walk back. From here, heavy kicks to the face, stomps to the groin, but you control this hand and you use it like a leash. You pull in, bam, you would kick all the way through his face. Okay? When you had the opportunity, you can just do a simple push sweep. It's where I push on his knee, kick him over. I could finish in this position and take off, or I could just kick him, put my feet on the hips, and press him way back, and then take off. It's up to you. I mean, it depends if the person's close or a little bit farther away. 90% of the time, though, you walk back to here, you're throwing heavy kicks to the face, to the body, just push him back, full force. Stand up in base and take off. Okay? Just show it a little more real time. Another angle. Okay, one quick note. The reason you don't want to just, after you kick him away, he'll be right behind you. Make sure that when you kick him back, that you stand up in base. So if he comes for me, I'm ready to go again. We're going to talk now about cross-side escape. So you've fallen on your back, and the person is just above you. They could be flat or they could be up. And the same technique works both ways. We'll start with Joe up just so you can see the technique. Maybe put it in that hand. Okay? First thing, just like in the mount and in the guard, immediately get that 2-hand control. That's the most important thing for your survival. Once you get that, I'm going to pop my hips in and then shrimp back, bring my feet in between, and then heavy kicks to the face and to the body. Then I could stand up in base and take off. Okay, so from another angle. Again, most important, 2-hand control. Pop him with your hips to push him away as I shrimp back, feet in between. Heavy kick, kick all the way, you'd kick all the way through his face. however many you feel you can, and then stand up and take off. Now, one thing a lot of wrestlers do is they go to what's called a head and arm position. The way that looks, now I'll go over here, it's pretty much a headlock. Okay? So he's going to encircle my head. Now, this one requires its own technique. What's the most important thing? Grab that limb. If this one can come under, even better. But it might not be able to. But in this case, it got through. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to walk my feet counterclockwise as I push his neck back. So I walk my feet and I push his neck. This creates a hole for him to fall back into. I'm going to take my left leg, go underneath his jaw, and then I figure 4 my other leg. I squeeze, and then I bring both knees out from under his body. From here, I could go to knee on belly. I could work heavy shots. I could do my stab disarm, and then I could take off. Let's do that from another angle. So Joe, you'll be over here. Again, let's say this time I only got one hand. That's okay. Push into the neck, forcing him back. Nobody likes this because it's cutting off his air supply and he needs to escape this or he will get a little bit of a choke. I walk my feet away. As soon as he starts to go, I put my right leg now underneath the jaw as I figure 4 my legs. I stretch my legs out and I ride up on top. I can work heavy dropping elbows, eye rakes, punches to the groin, whatever you like at this point. Finish with a nice stab disarm and leave. We're just going to show you that figure 4ing of the legs just from one more angle. Again, control the weapon, push on the neck, walk your feet, come around, figure 4. This is very strong because I can stretch him out, unlock your legs, come to a side control, pin him down, dropping elbows, however many you need. You can even go to eye rakes, stab, and take off. Another position, this is very dangerous, is Joe has fallen down on his stomach and the person has jumped on top. We're going to start off with the simple version where they're on top and they're stabbing you in the back, okay? Now there's no way Joe can control this limb, so what he wants to do, he's going to bring his body underneath, he's going to bring his legs underneath and explosively roll. He's got that real good. Let's try again. And what I mean bring the body together is when he goes for that roll, he'll do it real slow without me on top. He brings his knees up just enough so he can flip over, okay? So the person is on top, they're stabbing, he brings in his rolls. Now where is he? He's in the mount, and we've already known and done that escape before. He controls it, traps my foot, bridges, rolls, heavy elbows. Okay, good. So that's a simple escape when they're just stabbing in the back. Now, something a little more dangerous though is where they're here and they forcefully drive the blade across your neck and when they want to kill you. Now, if you're in this particular instance, the first thing he must do is control the blade. And he grabs it with 2 hands and pulls it under. Now, we're going to sit up just so you can see what he's actually doing. I'm going to bring the blade across, and he's going to grab both hands right at the wrist, and he pulls down to his chest. Now here, I can't cut Joe, okay? That's very strong grip on his part. So it comes through, and he sucks it down. So he's literally going to press the blade against the ground and his chest. All right, now let's go back to your stomach. Blade comes through. He grabs two hands and sucks it down. I can't get it now. Notice how this arm is trapped. This is a perfect opportunity for him to roll over that shoulder. So he's going to bring his feet up inside. He's going to lift with this leg, roll me off, but notice how he doesn't roll with me. He does what's called a counter roll. So right after I'm thrown, instead of rolling with me, so I would take his back, he counter rolls to stay on his knees. Okay? Let's work that again. Person's on top. You feel the blade come around. You get your two-hand control. Now notice how he brings his feet in. He brings one foot and then his other foot. If Joe were to go back down, this is called going to the turtle. If you were to try to bring both feet in at one time, if I'm too heavy, he won't be able to do it. But if he brings one and then the other, it's a very good way to advance position and it's very strong. He's got my arm trapped. He's going to lift with his left, roll, immediately counter rolls. Now from here, he's just going to go to his basic strikes. Stab, disarm, and he takes off. Okay, we'll try it from another angle. Head here. Person comes around, seizes control, brings his feet inside, counter rolls, and finishes. Now, very good, very good. We're just going to have Joe do it wrong one time. And where I want him to go wrong is not to counter roll, okay? So you can imagine from here, guys, this is not where you want to be, okay? By counter rolling, he will keep me from taking his back.
In our fifth case study, we see two teens have been pushed over a fence and repeatedly kicked, punched, and stabbed. You see two stabs to the back, another to the kidney, another to the leg, another to the kidney, and another to the arm. If you're ever on the ground, facing multiple opponents, both with or without weapons, you must improve your position by rolling to your back and making them face your feet and work to escape.
Another very common place you might find yourself is where your opponent is standing above you and you've fallen and hit the ground. Now realize your main objective here is to get up as quickly as possible. Whenever a knife is facing you and you're on the ground, this is not ground fighting in any way. This is survival and you need to get up and escape. First show you how to stand up in base and then we'll actually go through the technique of defense. So standing up in base is I put one hand back and I keep one foot on the ground. I'm going to lift with this point of contact and this point of contact and completely lift my hips. I'm then going to swing my free leg up and back. And then I stand up as if I was ready to fight from there. Okay? So again, I have one hand posts out towards the danger, the other posts back at a 45. I put one foot down, which helps elevate my hips. I then swing my foot back so I can stand up. The reason for this is that when I do go for an attack and I go to stand up, when I see my chance, okay, I want to stun before I run. When I stun and I decide that I'm going to run now, I want to push out towards and come up. If, on the other hand, I were to just try to push him and get up like this, he'll push you right back down. Even worse is you kick and turn, he's going to be right on your back in a second. Okay? So, stand up in base, one hand towards your attacker, one hand back, one foot makes contact to do a strike, steps down, Then you get up, free from attack, and take off. All right? Now, how do you actually defend against strikes when you're on the ground? Always go to one hip or the other. If you lay flat on your back, you're like an anchor, and it's hard for you to pivot. If you, on the other hand, go to one side, you can very easily pivot on your hips. Okay? So, go back to an elbow. One foot is up in between us as a shield, and I take my hand and I turn it in and I put it against my knee. I'm creating a wall. If he throws a strike and I'm slow, he's going to hit either shin bone or the back of my arm. If he throws a kick, again, I have this protecting my groin. Everything's in nice and tight. All right? So all you do is go here, throw your kick either to the knee or the groin, and only if he really presents the target might you go boom, right up to the face. Okay? Then you would put a foot down, put a hand back, stand up in base, and take off. So here's how a very simple, easy drill to practice your movement. We're just going to go for just a moment, and you're just going to watch me hit here. I'm going to roll from side to side as I throw my strikes. Okay? Obviously there, you get up and take off. Okay, so I think you got the idea. The main is just very, very relaxed and roll from side to side. Let's put it all together now. So like I've said 100 times over, you have to spar this material. You cannot take anything statically and just go through it 5 or 6 times. You will not learn how to put it all together. So here's a really nice way to do it. Joe's going to lay down. He's going to spread his arms out to his side, and he's going to keep his legs lightly spread. What this is going to allow Austin to do, Austin can go into his guard, he can go to mount, he can go to cross side, he can go to any position that he likes. And as soon as he gets there, he's just going to start frantically stabbing Joe. And here's probably what you're going to see more than any technique. You're going to see an immediate control of the weapon, followed by getting feet in between kicking, and then he's going to take off. Then he would come back, and he'll do it again. You guys ready? Begin.
One more time.
Now, this next one, basic tenacity drill. I'm going to take the blade, I'm going to put it right between their backs. Okay? When I say go, they are both going to immediately kind of separate, try to grab the blade, and try to stab each other. One person will automatically be working offense. The other, however position they find themselves in, will be automatically working defense. Nobody knows when the drill starts who's going to get what. You guys ready? Begin. Good. Excellent. Let's try again. What's worth doing once is worth doing 3 times. You guys ready? Again, I drop it between. Begin. Now Rachel got it this time. Very good. Rear mount. Look it, he's working to roll her. He's making sure, though, that his main priority is controlling that blade. He doesn't want to let that knife go. He's very smart about that. He's working up into her guard. Now, in this particular case, this would be we can stop right there. A self-correcting mistake would be what? Grabbing the blade. If there's a real blade, you just cut all your own tendons. Let's try it again. So try to stay right in here. I know it goes all over the place.
Yeah.
Let's go again. Begin. Good, guys, good. Oh, very good. Great, come back. Once more. What Rachel did very well there is that as soon as she saw that he had the weapon and they had a little bit of space, she instinctively took off. That is absolutely the right thing. We do not grapple with the knife. Begin. Joe is going to do the same drill. His eyes are going to be closed. Austin is going to be trying to stab. But then I'm going to circle in and just cause some more problems. Okay? And you can do this drill 1 of 2 ways. One is you can have someone always constantly circling, kicking, punching, stabbing, whatever you like, just to add more visual confusion to him. Or the way we're going to do it is as soon as he starts to escape from Austin, starts to rise up, then I'm going to come in as a secondary attacker. It's going to make him blend his defensive techniques. He's going to have to go right from ground survival against the knife to standing survival. Now, we probably know what he's going to do, right? He's just going to freak out and run out of frame. Well, really, that's the idea. All right? Let's begin. You guys ready? Good. Let's try again. And we'll stay right back on these 4. That was a good hit. You guys see that? That instantaneous, that block palm strike to the head, it stopped me for a second. I don't want my nose broken, neither does the attacker. There's 2 things real attackers don't want. 1, they don't want to get hurt, and they don't want to get caught. That was perfect. That was great. So again, we're going to do it one more time. I'm just going to kind of float around, cause trouble. Joe's covering himself. Here's a fun one. What I'm going to do is, all this is going on, I'm just going to run around, and I'm going to do a simulated strike to Joe. Well, I'm actually going to hit him, but sometimes it's nice to take this close to their head so they hear this just lightning explosion. But watch what Joe does very well. He will constantly try to keep Austin in between the 2 of us, and also, if he does see something coming, he's going to try to defend the best he can. But really, you've just got to be prepared for the reality of a fight. And it's going to be multiple opponents against you, blades, knives, guns, whatever. Something is going to be involved also. So don't ever expect just going to be hand-to-hand combat with no weapons. And something like this, if you hit the ground, just expect multiple punches are going to come, and a bag like this really helps simulate that safely. You guys ready? Ready. Let's go. Good. Let's do it one more time.
In this case study, we see 2 men engaged in a verbal confrontation. The man on the left pushes and then pulls a knife and puts it to the other man's neck, and he cuts. He pushes him back to the seats and repeatedly stabs him in the chest and neck. Again, notice there's lots of people watching, but they don't get involved. I think this is for two reasons. One is they don't really know it's a serious fight. And two, by the time they do realize that this is something serious, the fight is usually over. As we watch again, remember, he checks with that hand and then cuts with the other. A very common and instinctive tactic.
We're going to talk now about some weapon mugs. Now, the main thing, again, you want to think about when you're in any kind of mug situation is body, life, or location. If Joe comes up to me and he puts that knife against my throat, and he's like, "Give me your money," I'll give him my money, right? If he asks for me to go to a second location, though, that's the L in body, life, location. That's the last one. Remember it as an acronym as BULL, body, life, location. If he says to go to another location, well, that's my time to defend myself, right? Because that's something I can't do. But if he asks, for money, he asks for jewelry, whatever it is, just give it to him. Car keys, all of that stuff is just monetary based. It's nothing to fight over, okay? So with that out of the way, let's now move into some of our basic mug defenses. But what I want to make a clear distinction, this isn't a mug, right? If this is the scenario, I would probably throw a kick and take off. The mug is where he physically grabs both one or two hands, but it's in tight, okay? There isn't space. Also, if he grabs a gun. The mugs that we do, because most times if you're confronted, will be in close range. Both weapons are dark. It's hard to distinguish between the two. What we want you to keep in mind is that whatever technique that I do has to work against both, okay? Because you won't necessarily have time to differentiate what you've been attacked with, okay? So we'll start off with a simple mug from the front and realize that this can work from your throat to your stomach to the groin and everywhere in between, okay? So Joe grabs. First thing you want to do is bring your hands up and comply. Hey, you want money? Take my money. But he asked for something I won't do. Maybe he wants to go to a second location. So I'm going to take both hands. I'm going to do what's called a double clear. I'm going to lean my body back as I push the arm away. Okay? The reason for the double clear is if these hands fail, the blade will stay right in my throat. So I also want to clear my body back because we're all human and we make mistakes, right? So I'm going to lean back and press the blade away. From here, I'm going to take my right hand and just hit him right in the face with an elbow. I'm going to grab a few heavy knee shots. It's best now to break contact and take off. Going for a disarms are incidental because you may or may not get it. And it's not worth getting into a secondary power struggle for the blade if you could just hit and take off. Okay, so again from the front, hey, whatever you want, I try to comply. He was making a demand I won't meet. Lean back, press away, elbow right to the face, driving knees, break contact, and take off. Let's try from another angle. It's here, real fast, two-hand control, heavy elbows, heavy knees, break contact, and take off. Well, now let's say he attacks to the stomach. Same deal, right? We like to think of it this way. The blade points where it wants to go. For example, if the blade was pointing this way, it's pointing out at a 45, let it go that way. Don't draw it back along your body. If the blade is against my neck here, it's pointing the way it wants to go. All right? So in an instance where it's to your body, simply step out, block it away. Heavy elbows. Break contact and take off. Another side. Blade points where it wants to go. I do a double clear. Heavy elbows. Heavy knees. Break contact and take off. If it's low, hollow out, block out, heavy elbows, heavy knees. Again, the strikes you do on Monday will be different than the strikes you do on Tuesday, okay? Don't get in the habit of repeating a dead cycle because that's not what's going to happen in the street. You might get to here, this slips off, you miss it, he comes in for a tackle, and you got to go into something else, okay? But just realize whatever is available, I'm going to use my tools to get to those targets, okay? So we talked high, medium, and low, always the same response. I want to give you a quick cheat technique. And we find that when we spar these, we're going hard and fast with it, that this particular little cheat technique works almost all the time. Let's say, for example, I'm attacked from the side. All too often, people get focused on, oh, it's a side attack. I can't move. I can't try to change this position, right, without contesting his power. Well, you can. Oh, hey, man, you want my wallet? Here's my wallet. What did I do? I gave myself a reason to face him. And what technique have I done maybe more than any? Well, it would be a front defense versus a side or a back, which I probably do a little less often. Okay? Let's take it again. Let's say he comes up to my back. Oh man, take it easy. You want my money? I'm serious. I'll give you my money. It's right here. It's right here. Okay? So all I'm doing is kind of using something that he wants to give me a reason to turn in, even if it's at a little angle. Okay? An angle you might not have really seen before. Hey, take it easy. Just turn it to a front attack that you know better. Another possible mug situation is where the person comes up alongside you. In the first one we'll do, the blade is in front of your arm. And again, it's going to be dark. You won't know if it's a gun or a knife, so we want our techniques to overlap. Gun and knife, we do the same thing. I'm going to take this arm here and I'm going to push it forward the best I can. But remember our double clear concept, where I'm going to push out, I'm clearing my body and the weapon. Okay, so I've done my clear, I control it, and now I begin my counter strikes. Okay, real simple. You're caught again, the blade's in front, push the blade forward as you grab it. Get two hands on it, square up, deliver elbows. You can do eye rakes, hair pulls, whatever you like. Working knee shots, break contact and escape. Let's try it another side. Okay, now this is different. The blade is now behind my arm. What I want to do here is I'm going to scoop back as I step in. Elbow, grab, heavy knees. Okay? The motion of Joe just steps back is this. Okay? From another angle, this. Okay? You have to, though, step in to your partner because you need to expect that as soon as I begin my motion, that they're going to retreat in some way. And if he retreats and I don't step in, I miss it completely. Okay? So follow your opponent as you go. So he's here. I push back, elbow. Heavy knees, eye rake, disengage. Let's try that from another angle. He's behind my arm. I block down as I step in. Okay, move over here just a little bit. I block down as I step in. Grab, go to whatever attacks you like. All right? So again, notice though there's a slight difference. When he is here, I'm going to his back, versus if he's on this side, I'm going right into his body. But notice the technique is always the same. I'm clearing my body, stepping in, and striking. One small hanging point. If I hook like this above his elbow, he pulls back. That's hard for me to hold on to. If I come underneath, he pulls back. He's not going to get it. Okay? And of course, this is a simultaneous, immediate strike. Okay? So that will cover you from if it's in front of the arm, if it's behind. Okay? You're just going one way or the other. Now that last technique we just did is where we blocked down, stepped in, and elbowed, also applies to the back. So if Joe puts the blade against my back, I do the same thing. I will block between us as I step. I will get my good control, and I will elbow right away. And again, you follow up with whatever comes naturally. Okay? So again, a little more of an angle here. I step between with my leg and with my arm. Both work together as I hit. Okay? Again, comply if you can. Step in and strike. Try it from another side. Left leg steps, left arm circles in. Okay? Now, one other little note is that when he gets you here, it's important which way you turn. If I turn away from his hand, see his hand right here? If I turn away from that, he will feel it almost instantly. As soon as I make my move, he feels it. And you end up getting into this strange little spin cycle, okay? And you don't want that. So it's better, like we were just doing, to turn in. Now, the other danger is if he does grab here and I turn into him, what happens 90% of the time is I block this down, it ends up getting trapped against his body. And what might happen is he will pull the blade back and then he'll just start running it right up the center. But if something goes wrong, and you do find that that's the way you went, lock your hands together, work some strikes, take him down, and take off. We're going to detail that takedown just once more. I stepped, and I got the arm trapped against his body. I come to a gable grip, which is palm to palm. I walk both feet together so I can pinch. I look to the ceiling as I arch and bring him down. As soon as I get him down, I want to break contact and take off. So the motion without Joe, palms come together, step around his knee, pinch, lift, swing him down. You don't have to go down with him right about here. Let go, let him hit the ground, and take off.
In our last case study, we see a man walking along the streets in the early hours of the morning. He sees a woman and he slowly follows her. He's trying to get ahead of her, and we'll see him move off into a corner so he can wait to ambush her. Here she comes. She's walking and talking on her cell phone and smoking a cigarette, completely unaware of what's about to happen. As the attacker comes out, he has a knife in his left hand and he puts it to her throat, knocking her off balance. He takes her cell phone and puts it in his pocket. Thankfully, the police were alerted and he was soon caught. As we watch again, look how unaware she is. Her tactical awareness was low, and he capitalized on it.
The last position we're going to talk about is if you get caught from behind with a sleeper type hold. Something like this. Okay? Remember on the ground, Joe shot 2 hands up and controlled the wrist. He pulled it down so I can't cut. What he'll do next, he's going to take his left leg and he's going to step between us. From here, he pops his head out. He will kick down to the side of my leg, and he can then take off. All right? Once again, person comes up behind, they grab and they're pulling. He controls the blade so I can't cut. He will step through with his left, kicking out the ACL, and then he takes off. Now there's a small detail in there, which is as soon as you get caught, he grabs the hand and he pulls it down. Just like on the ground when we did like the bridge to create space, Joe can also create space by banging his hips back. Let's turn to the side. Before we were here, not a lot of space for him to maneuver, but he pops his hips back, and see that gap that opened up? It gives him a little space. Steps through, kicks, and takes off. Now there's one small point that he can also do, which he often likes to do. He gets caught from behind, he controls it, he pops his hips back. As he steps through, he cuts the femoral artery and kicks and takes it out. All right? It's a very easy transition. Because you're heading out that way anyway, you might as well just try to send the blade up the center. Okay? We'll do it from another angle. Again, he's caught. I'm pulling off balance. He controls. He pops down, cuts, and takes out the ACL. Now, let's say the blade, though, isn't up, but they're doing the same kind of maneuver, and they're shoving it to your back. What Joe's going to do is he's going to take his left hand, and he's going to run that between the two of us. Overhooks, he's going to elbow or palm, whichever works for his body type, and then he's out. Okay? Because again, they might jump here or they might jump here. Okay? Again, if he turns into the blade, I'll just take it right back. Okay? Again, he turns into the blade. Oh! He got it that time. Joe's got some secret technique. Again, he turns into the blade. It's too easy for them to do that. All right? So what he wants to do is he's going to take his left, yes, and strike. Okay? One more time from a different angle. Comes across. The blade is to his back kidney. Joe is going to take his arm, shoot it through. He's going to throw his strikes. And remember, just like we did from the side, notice how he's got a good death grip on that arm. We don't spend a lot of time trying to get you to memorize a particular technique, because the problem with that is Joe grabs me. If I am trying to now go through my data bank and say, was I taught how to escape from this? You'll be too slow. Everything you do, thank you, Joe, just needs to be reactionary. So here's how we put it together. Again, we gave you some basic tools on how to get to a better position. All the strikes that you do once you get to that position are pretty much up to you. And as soon as you feel that you've moved your opponent back enough, then you break contact and take off. So here's another drill. Joe's just going to stand with his eyes closed. Austin is going to come up, and he's going to put him in any one of these mugs. Okay? Joe will then just react naturally off of that. There'll be a little dialogue involved, but again, we're going to kind of keep it short. But Joe is mostly listening for a body, life, or location request. All right, you guys ready? Begin.
Hey man, come with me.
Take it easy, take it easy. I'm going to do exactly what you said.
Good. Austin was asking Joe to go with him, something that Joe will not do. He said he was going to kill him, so Joe just goes. And again, are the techniques real sharp? No, but real fighting is not that way. Let's do a few more, guys.
Hey man,
Okay.
money? Money?
Yeah.
Money.
Okay.
See, he's asking for money.
I'm just going to give you my wallet.
That is a request Joe will meet. That's all it was, guys. It doesn't have to be always a fight. And you want to train that way. You always want to be thinking, listen to what they have to say. There's no need to make this a fight if it doesn't have to be. Let's do a few more.
Hey, over here. See that van over there?
Yeah. We're going to go right.
He was asking him to go to a van. Joe ain't going to no van. One more time.
Okay, over.
We're going to talk about one more avenue, and we're going to talk about third-party protection. That would be, say, my wife and I are out for a walk and we get approached by someone. What should we do right away? Well, if he asks for money, whatever, give it to him. Now, in this particular case, Rachel is more than capable of defending me, all right? But we'll just pretend she can't at this moment. The blade is presented. Common sense would be what? Give them what they want. They make a demand we won't meet. Technique simple. Cover it, multiple strikes, creating a barrier. Get help. Give them a proactive command. They take off, and then you take off. The thing about telling someone a proactive command is if I just stand here and I'm just striking and I don't tell them to do anything, they will probably try to get involved. And if they don't know how to fight, that could just become a liability for yourself. All right? Secondly, they won't want to leave you alone. But if you tell them something to do, something very particular like get help, then they know they're being a part of the solution. It's a great thing to do with children. But you have to teach the kids where a safe place to go get help is. Oh, it could be a local grocery store, anything that is very visible and a big establishment. Tell your kids you rush there right away. So again, we want to say get help. All right? So here's how the drill might go down. We're just out walking. This person approaches. Whoa, take it easy, take it easy. What do you want?
Got any money?
All right, do you have any money?
I
Take it
don't
easy.
want-
We're not looking for any trouble, okay? Here, just take it. We don't want any trouble. Guys, that's as simple as it has to be, right? Don't make it into more than what it needs to be. Now we do it again. But this time money's not enough. Whoa, take it easy, man. What do you want?
Hey, she's gonna come with me.
Wait, she's not going anywhere. Get help! Why don't you go get help? She knows what to do. We're just messing around. But that's the idea. In a third-party protection situation, you step between who you're trying to protect and you go after the attacker. Hopefully, they will then take off. Now, one more consideration is let's say you see some kind of attack taking place. but you are not involved in it. Now, this is something that you're going to have to think a lot about. It would not be a good idea to jump in the middle of two strangers. You don't know what this fight is about, so really weigh that seriously. But if this is a loved one, I'm carrying groceries, I see that some little micro fight has developed in front of me. Okay, I'm not going to let her get victimized. Your best approach is what we did just a second ago. You're going to rush in hard, control that blade, multiple shots, break contact, go get help. Okay, let's try a little more real time. The last technique we want to cover is a two-man tactic. And again, Joe and I, let's say, same kind of scenario, but I had a friend with me. Again, I want to give him now a real proactive command. What I'm going to do is I'm going to jump on the blade, and I'm going to try to stab it in the ground. This is good for gun or knives. You can do it either way. But the main focus is protecting her. That's the whole reason we got involved. So if it was a gun, I wouldn't just grab it right here. I want to rush hard, clearing her of that blade. Remember, clear, control, counter, it works in third-party tactics too. Joe, I'm going to give him a simple command. Tackle him. All right? So my job is to control the weapon. Joe's job is to tackle. All right? So you two can just start talking.
Everyone, take it easy. Take it easy. Take it easy.
Over here, over here.
Let's do it again. That was fun.
Russ, what do you want? What do you want?
So I think you got the idea. It's very simple, it's very explosive, and it's a good technique to use in a hostage situation where the person you're with, you've trained with. If I was with my mom, I wouldn't say, Mom, you tackle him. I'd say, let's just try, protect Rachel the best we can, but I wouldn't let her get involved. But if it's someone like Joe, another officer, yeah, you tackle, I get the blade.